Good. Okay, here we go. Gosh, I have more stuff to carry. It is now 5 o'clock. We will begin the workshop for the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, March 27th, 2014. I will have the prayer, the next meeting, and Vice Mayor, you'll have the pledge. Please review the minutes for March 4th, public hearing, and for the regular meeting. And before we get started, I will remind everyone that this is being televised live. And at this time, we have a very special presentation for Mr. Bill Griggs. Would you like to take the floor, please, sir?
Thank you, Mayor. We've been working for Vergne for several years now. Excuse me, this is Jamie Enzy with our office. And we work in a lot of cities, and we've noticed that a lot of city jobs are not 8 to 5 hour jobs, 8 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock at night jobs. A lot of city jobs are not 8 to 5 jobs, not Monday through Friday jobs. A lot of jobs in cities such as Vergne are 24/7. People provide their service 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, without regard to weather, temperature, rain and snow, whatnot. And that includes the sewer department and the water department and the streets department and the fire and safety department. And as any organization, you're only as strong as your employees, and every group wants to hire the best employees they can. Sometimes they're successful at that, sometimes they're not quite successful. But anyway, you've got an employee here that's been affiliated with the city for nearly 20 years, and he was recently recognized as the new fire chief. And so there was a nice article in the paper, and we caught that, and we went out and cut some wood and planed it and painted it and framed it up, and Ricky would like to give you this framed from the newspaper.
Bill, we appreciate you recognizing the work of our employees, and that's quite lovely. And we appreciate you and your company very much. And Ricky, that's very nice. Also at the meeting, we will have a presentation of donations for the Laverne Lake Forest Playground. We'll also have a proclamation for the National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week. And we will have our Employee of the Month. All of this will be done Tuesday night. Old business, we have second reading, ordinance 2014-03, an ordinance to amend Title III, Chapter 6, Section 3-602 of the Laverne Municipal Code regarding traffic school fees. This is the second reading for this. And do you have any questions regarding this? Any questions whatsoever? Any comments or concerns? Well, y'all gonna be a quiet bunch tonight. All right, moving on. Y'all stop me if I get to going too fast. We have many consent agenda items. We're going to start approved recommendations for city bids and purchases. Number 1 is bid dispatch center furniture. You're going to be up here a lot, aren't you?
No, not really. I've got it short and sweet.
All right.
The dispatch furniture bid came back, and if you will look at your memo, there's quite a bit of difference in the two companies, and Bonix was at the budgeted amount that the chief had budgeted for it, so he would like to go ahead and go with them. We will have to get them some chairs, but that'll just have to be later because the chairs that were put in there just were not
Okay.
what we would want for them. I wouldn't want to sit in it 8 hours a day, let alone 24/7.
This is furniture that was budgeted from police impact fees this year. This is just a little more than what about 1,000, I think, or a little over $1,000 more than what we actually had budgeted. However, we had 20,000 budgeted out of those same dedicated dollars for the upgrade of the evidence room. We had to use almost 10,000 of that to do the electrical work because of the Motorola radio replacement. So there's still some of those dollars that are left. So when it comes down to it, I'll probably go bend Phyllis's ear and beg and plead to see if there's any way down the road that we can go ahead and spec out the chairs and do them separately. And we can cover whatever little bit of overage there is here from what we had previously for that project.
All righty. Sounds good. Any questions? Okay. Next, purchase concession supplies for baseball, softball league.
Mayor, this will just get them started. The approval to go to Sam's. We will probably have to come back and bid at a later date certain supplies, but they've got to get started, so we just needed approval to go ahead and get started because we know that it's going to spend over $5,000 before we can get a bid out
Okay.
in the next couple of months.
All righty. Any questions? Keep moving. Purchase replacement computers for the IT department.
These are just general citywide replacements where Glenn and Jackie will be replacing computers here and there. This is off of a state contract, but it's more than $5,000, so we,
Right.
want to make sure you do know, though, that it was bid from the state contract.
Okay. Questions? Okay, here we go. Purchase beds and mattresses for the fire station. I can't talk tonight.
Well, I believe Chief Culberson's memo here explains it all, and I believe y'all already saw all that, so I don't think there's anything I need to say.
And-
It's needed. I'm not arguing.
And we do have money in the budget for this.
We are looking at moving some around from different line items to this.
And we also got to remember with our line items in this one, it'll be more distinct in this next budget year, but because of the way that we've gone into it this year, I mean, they're keeping up with every penny. It's just,
We're not using at all.
Yeah.
Move over to this, so.
Yeah.
And trust me, they are keeping up with it.
oh, yes,
They are.
yes. I've
They're in
heard
my office every few days, making sure they've got what they need.
what John Mack, I think, is holding the fire to him. Matter of fact, they tried to give me John Mack, and I tried to take him. And then Ricky took him back, so.
He's keeping an eye on it.
All right, good. Any questions? And if y'all have any question on that, y'all need to go see what they're sleeping on. I mean, I really suggest that if you're out and about, please go by and tell them to look and take a look at it.
I'm sure they need something good.
I think they would challenge you to sleep one night on it.
I wouldn't.
Well, we know you would.
I'd be afraid it'd fall in on me.
Okay. Number 5, add street lights along Waldron Road.
These street lights are where, when the road widening was done, they were there along the Bridgestone property, and Bridgestone did not put them back up. They opted not to have them put back up, but they are needed, and so that leaves the city to put those back up.
And it
pay
is
for
dark
them.
down through there.
It's gonna be about 14 of those lights. They do need to be done, but
I think it's 12 from International down to Vergne.
I had to put one up through Middle Tennessee Electric from the bridge to McDonald's, then adding 2 extra on the bridge coming towards Murfreesboro Road.
Yeah, it's dark.
It's a total of 4.
Any questions? Okay. Moving right along, number 6. There's stolen mattresses, I'm sorry.
Okay, I think this is the fire station 2
Yes.
repairs and improvements.
Yes.
Part of this is insurance, but with our purchasing regulations, it doesn't matter how it's gonna be paid. It's gotta come before council if it's gonna be over 5,000. And this is total, is over 8,000. This company has, and this will make them exceed a bid limit. However, the scope of the work they've done, like one was replace the floor in the TV room back here for Jerry's office. There's been miscellaneous roof work. I mean, it's not all the same type construction work. It's all been different types things. And we're truly trying to figure out how to even do a bid for construction, because how are you going to know truly what your materials and costs are? All you could really bid is labor. This company, every time we've gotten 3 quotes, they've come in at the lowest. That's why they've been given the work. And again, this time, they're several $1,000s lower than the other company.
And let's remind everyone, there was a major flood over there. Was it the hot water heater exploded?
The hot water heater exploded upstairs.
So,
And
is
this
not-
has been a year, honestly, for the city, period, where we've just had different things happen that has required construction work that we've never done in the past. So we would like this approved and,
Well, I mean, we have to fix it. That's.
Mm-hmm.
it's gotta
well,
be done
and the
done
other
right.
portion of it is expanding, because their shower area would not accommodate the washer and dryer that we're putting in, and the shower wouldn't accommodate them either. So we kind of need to expand that.
Just so the council is aware, the shower was the original. If you remember, this has just been ongoing. The shower that was in there originally when we purchased it from private fire had been leaking. That's where the damage in the downstairs kitchen had come from, and the flooring upstairs. Then we had the water heater explode, which dropped all the ceilings downstairs and then finished off the rest of the upstairs floor. So this has just been ongoing, one thing after the other. But this company's been good enough too to come back and actually work with the pricing that the insurance company gave them back. They've come down considerably just to match that. So they're doing a lot more work. That would have cost a whole lot more money if it had not been for this company.
Questions? Any questions? That's all you have? All right. Thanks. Approve the submittal of Form CT 0253, report on debt obligation for the Motorola console equipment lease purchase agreement with SunTrust. Is that you, Ms. Beth?
This is the required form by the comptroller's office with the state that's required anytime we enter into any kind of financial arrangement. We have to have this form turned into them within 45 days after issuance, and it's just, needs to go before the board.
Homework.
Yep.
Any questions? Next, approve contract to audit accounts with Uri Howell and Associates for fiscal year 2013-14. I believe we all know this company. They've done a very good job for us. And it's that time of year.
Their process in this is they have to submit to the state that they want to audit the city of Laverne, and then they get approved by the state, and then we have to approve it, that we accept their proposal. And I looked at their amounts, and the amounts did not go up again this year for their contract price.
Any questions? All right, moving right along. Approve agreement with Anderson Design Group Incorporated, Spirit of Rutherford County Collection. Kathy, you want to take that one?
We met with the Chamber of Commerce and this designer group. It is like the Spirit of Nashville collection, but Rutherford County is doing this. It does cost us $3,000, a $1,500 deposit up front. We will be one of 12 prints in this Rutherford County collection. Laverne will get one, and I think you and I talked about doing the lake picture. But it's going to be a really neat thing. We'll get 200 prints that we'll be able to resell. We're buying the prints for $15 each, and then we can sell them, I think, up to $39 each. So if we sell all 200, which hopefully they'll be beautiful enough that people will want them, it'll be at least a break even, probably a moneymaker for the city out of my public relations budget.
And it's another way that they're promoting.
They're promoting Rutherford County.
Any comments, concerns, or ideas on this one?
I just have a question. Why just one out of 12? I mean, we're certainly not Murfreesboro, but where are the other ones? Is it something additional we would have to pay? Or?
I think there are 11 other people lined up ahead of us, and we're kind of lucky to get one.
Okay.
But we had asked about that, you know, of course it would have cost us $6,000 if we did two, but they're doing everything from landmarks in Murfreesboro to like the Sam Davis home in Smyrna to, you know,
The
we're talking
courthouse.
courthouse, yeah.
Yeah, so we got our one. Better than it?
Yeah.
We are looking for picture ideas. They're looking for ideas unique to our area, and we thought the lake would be a good option.
But y'all can think about it between now and Tuesday night, and if y'all have any other questions, you can certainly call Bruce and say, hey, let's pull this off and discuss that some more. So y'all think about that, with how you want to do that. All right, approved contract with Derby City Amusements for the Old Timers Festival Carnival.
The contract that we got from Derby City Amusements, as Evan said, was lacking. So he and his staff have revised the contract. I have sent it to Derby City Amusements. It's the same carnival company as last year, but they're adding either 7 or 8 new rides. Same setup as last year, except they'll spread out over the whole parking lot. And again, I'm waiting to hear back from Mr. House on if this contract's acceptable. We'll know by Tuesday.
And if it's not, we will also take this one off of the consent agenda item.
Yes.
I can't believe it's that time
It's that
already.
time of year, I know, I know.
Cannot.
Next. Let me get going. Boy, that contract is long. All right. Next, we're very excited. It's approved grant contract with Christie Houston Foundation for the Lake Forest Playground. We're happy to report that we were approved for the Christie Houston grant for $62,211.
Great.
For that will install and get our playground and Lake Forest put in place. Now, we do, in the contract, we did receive that actually today. I think Evan probably has not even had a chance to look over it. And I think a lot of the contract, from what I get, we're saying once we get this in that the city is going to maintain the park. But,
This says 62,119.
well, maybe I got it backwards. I thought it was 200. 62,119, what did I say?
$221.
I'm sorry.
You're $3 off.
Okay, I'll put the $3 in. But Evan will have that, I'm sure, looked over by Tuesday night. But we're very excited about this. Can't wait to get that playground up. And I'll go on and mention we're going to have the build will be June the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th. But I think the 4th and 5th is actually getting it prepared. And then the 6th and the 7th will actually be where we'll have groups coming in and getting the build done. So we'll be getting more information out. We've already had several groups that say they're willing to come in and help do the build. We'll have to get with maybe some churches have offered. Maybe they can help prepare sandwiches or stuff like that for the workers. But we'll be getting that information out fairly quickly and start getting that organized. so we can get that playground built. Next, approve sponsorship agreement with Academy Sports and Outdoors for the Laverne Youth Baseball and Softball Leagues. AC, I believe that's yours.
Yeah, I mean, you looked over the last contract, right? Everything looked good on that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, they are wanting to sponsor our youth baseball and softball for, some money and some equipment and things like that, so we're excited about that. And we got one with Dick's also, so,
I mean, so if you'll notice, what we're actually, on these last years, actually approval to accept monies.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's pretty exciting. Any questions? All right. Next is approve an application for a roadblock to be conducted for the Laverne Senior Center from 9 a.m. until 11 a.m. on April 12, 2014, with a rain date of April 19, 2013, at the intersection of Murfreesboro Road and Stones River Road.
I don't know why we decided on 9 to 11. I guess that's long enough for old people to be out there. I don't know. But that's the hours we decided. Bruce said, well, you could have gone longer.
Yeah, you can go.
So, but I don't know if we should change that time or not.
if you want to change it, we can change it to 9 to 12 or.
Yeah, well, why don't we say 9 to 12 and then we can just do as we please?
Okay. Okay, so we're gonna move that from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m.
That's what old people do, is they please.
That's right, that's right. You have the right to change your mind.
Okay, good, thank you.
All right. Next, motion to appoint or remove board members. We have one term vacant on the Historical Preservation Advisory Committee. So we have that one open. And next, we have the Local Emergency Planning Committee, and that is the Rutherford County SORT position. And I don't think we...
Adam Rose.
It's Adam Rose.
Adam Rose?
Adam Rose.
Okay.
You got it back to Bruce Lane.
Okay.
Like
We'll
five
have
minutes
that
ago.
on.
Yeah.
All right, well, we'll have that on for Tuesday night. All right. And last, we have Stormwater Appeals and Advisory Board. We have 2 terms vacant, and we do have an applicant. She actually did contact me and is very excited about getting on this board. So please review that application. All right. First reading, ordinance 2014-05, an ordinance to amend Title 7 and Title 12 of the Laverne Municipal Code by adopting the following standard codes: 2012 International Fire Code, 2012 International Building Code, 2012 International Plumbing Code, 2012 International Fuel Gas Code, 2009 International Energy Conservation Code, 2012 International Mechanical Code, 2012 International Residential Code, 2012 International Property Maintenance Code, 2012 International Existing Building Code, 2012 International Private Sewage Disposal Code, 2012 International Swimming Pool and Spa Code, 2009 ICCA 117.1-209 Accessible and Usable Buildings and Facilities Code, and the 2008 National Electrical Code.
Could you repeat that?
Yeah, I was going to ask if she
Drink
could
some water
repeat that
after
again.
I will.
It's all Randolph.
Okay, Randall.
You have any
Randolph?
breath left?
Anybody have any questions before I start? All right, I guess I'll go ahead and get out on this limb. As we all have discussed before, it's time now that we need to when the 2015 code becomes available, we'll be behind, under the curve, so to speak, so we'll need to get on the ball and get this in the works pretty soon. Everything in the packet that you've received, I guess, from Bruce are these codes that we've adopted. The reason we've gone with the 2009 the energy code is that the 2012 is just, there are too many requirements in that code, and no jurisdiction that I've come across has been in favor of the 2012 energy code. Therefore, everyone wants to go with the 2009. They're just building them so tight these days. In that 2012, their exterior walls are 2x6s instead of 2x4s, and it's just an enormous leap from where we are now to where we would be if we were to adopt the 2012. And at workshop last month, I failed to explain that to you. I said we'd get to that later, and I realized afterwards that we did not, but that's the reason why that we're going with the 2009. And excuse me, these recommendations that I've put up here before us today are consistent with every jurisdiction throughout Middle Tennessee there is, save Pleasant View and City of Nolensville. Pleasant View in Cheatham County, I believe, and then, of course, Nolensville and Williamson County. They are on board with residential sprinklers. And I've presented to you this residential code with adopting out of residential sprinklers. It's up to you as the board. If you want residential sprinklers, then by all means, I'd encourage you to do so. Well, there was some discussion at last workshop about putting a number on square footages as far as the bigger homes in some of the subdivisions, Woods of Martin's Bend, McFarland Point are two the developments that come to mind where we have, some of them are enormous, 5,000 square feet. Now, of that 5,000, there were maybe 4,200 of it was heated space. And the heated space is where we're going to look at residential sprinklers. So on a 1,700 square foot home with garages, covered porches and so forth, you're looking at a heated space of about 1,100 square feet. In homes that were total square footage, I looked at a 14 and a half, almost 15 months worth of residential permits going back to January of 2013 forward. There have been a few in that 14, 15-month time period where there were over 5,000 square feet. Now, of that 5,000 square feet, there was about 4,100 of it that was heated and cooled. Sprinklers aren't required for whatever reason. I'd want one in my garage before I put one anywhere else in my home, but they're not required in that garage. Covered porches and places like that, they're not required. So what we're looking at is heated space for sprinklers. Of that 4,000 square feet being the upper end, some of the smaller homes that were in around 3,200 square feet, they were 2,600, 2,500, 2,400 square feet heated space. Being, some of those homes have big garages. Let's just leave it at that. I know that some of you are in favor of residential sprinkler, and if it's the decision of this board that you want to adopt that code with residential sprinkler requirements, I would suggest we sprinkle all or nothing. Reason being is that trying to work out of two different code requirements based on square footages. If a builder is going to build a house in, let's say McFarland Point, because that's the one development in this community where we're getting some really big homes being built. If we put a number at that, say 3,500 square foot of heated space, I'm almost willing to bet everything that I know.
He's gonna build it at
3,390. They're going to stay under that. They're going to stay under that requirement that we put it. Say if we set the number at 35. And of course, when they sign that permit, they're basically signing an affidavit that says I'm going to build what I've applied for. So with that being said, if we're going to have to go out and actually physically measure this home after it's built and then retrofit it, when we find out that they're 3,550 or 3,600, then we've got a problem. Too many variables, too many avenues out would exist if we chose to sprinkle larger homes and not the smaller starter homes, let's say. I think if you want to sprinkle it, if it's your decision to sprinkle, then we sprinkle them all. Now, townhomes, commercial buildings over 5,000 square feet based on our local ordinance, they would require sprinklers. 3 or more townhomes over 5,000 square feet. When you start adding up townhomes and other occupancies and other residential occupancies, then yeah, we are going to sprinkle those. Per the 2012, it's going to require that you do that. Whereas before it has not. It's state regulation that it has to be sprinkled. Anybody have any questions so far?
That brings up a question to me. We do have the ordinance requiring the 5,000 square foot commercial buildings. Anything over that has to be sprinkled. Will we need to change that?
No, the local ordinance would remain untouched. I mean, you'd actually have to go in and rewrite that local ordinance, mandating that anything, that we let the building code stand as it's written, the 2012. If you keep your local sprinkler ordinance intact, anything above at 5,000 feet or over, we're going to see that it's sprinkled before we go.
But I think what he's saying, if we say we want sprinklers, we would have to change that ordinance to, if you build anything in Laverne, then it's
If you're going to require it on residential,
yeah.
you'd almost have to go back and require it on all commercial buildings too.
Well, in commercial buildings, the code, in most cases, commercial, our ordinance is 5,000 square feet, which that's quite a bit less than what the actual building code would require. The building code would require in certain occupancies that starts at 12,000 square feet for business, mercantile, and so forth. We're more stringent than the code is now. And, yeah, I guess it would mean that if you wanted to rewrite that local ordinance to mean that everything that comes before, if you're going to make every residential, why not make every commercial, every industrial, every business come before? Some of these bigger ones, like, for example, one of the reasons we're getting this, I'm having to put this together right now is that Walmart has done their due diligence with us. And of course, obviously that's going to be a sprinkled building. But, when they came to me wanting to know what code would they have to design under, I'm like, well, we're in the middle of making a code change, code cycle. And I've required that they do it under the 2012, for I felt like at the time they got all their preliminary site plan and so forth and all that through planning, we would be at a point where we can adopt the 2012. We can amend that local ordinance or do away or rewrite it in whatever way y'all see fit for commercial and industrial uses.
I say sprinkle it all.
Well, there's some folks I know that want to sprinkle everything. Everything. Outhouses, dog houses, storage buildings, accessories, you name it. They want it all sprinkled. And it's not a bad idea.
I know where I stand on sprinkling.
Well, sprinklers save property, they save lives.
Yes.
If in a 5,100 to 5,500, or bigger square foot home, that sprinkler activates in that one area, and others can get out, or anybody that's in that area has that extra time in order to make egress from that building because of the sprinkler. But I feel like if the board wants to sprinkle, then we should sprinkle every residential that's built.
Are there any other jurisdictions in Rutherford County that have sprinkler requirements?
No, sir. We would be the only jurisdiction in Rutherford County. We would be one of 2, perhaps 3 in all of Middle Tennessee that require sprinklers.
Nolensville does.
Nolensville and Pleasant View, I believe, in Cheatham County. Now, are we compared to Nolensville? Nolensville is they are all residential. That's all they are. Neighborhood services as far as commercial buildings that are built, and residential. We're on the other hand, we're on a mix of residential and industrial, commercial. We're more diversified, I guess, in what we do here, or what buildings we have here in Laverne. Nolensville was, you know, and I don't know if it had much of an effect on building at that time when I mean, they've been under a sprinkler ordinance now for quite some time. I don't know if it affected it adversely or not. I mean, I know you go through Nolensville, there's a lot of homes over there. So, big ones.
Good. Lots of people like to use us as an example. It's usually a bad example they want to make out of us. We can use this as a good one.
Yeah. So, I mean, as I have presented to you now, the ordinance, the way it's drafted is to opt out. All it amounts to is taking that one paragraph out of that modification, and we're in. But I would recommend, I know there was a lot of discussion about, you know, maybe going from 3,300, 3,400, 3,500, requiring that to be sprinkled. There's just going to be more headache with that than if we all or nothing. But because like Vice Mayor indicated, I mean, if a builder's going to build out in McFarland Point, and he's looking at a floor plan, say for example, a builder decides they're going to build something, they're going to build it at 3,280 square feet. And about a third of the way into the process, the building process, the homeowner decides he wants to move this wall out into a knee wall, or just make a bonus room bigger, or just, you know, let's do something bigger. And then they've stepped over that threshold. Now you got to go back and redo the whole thing, regardless of what phase of construction they're in.
And this does not affect homes that are already built. None
No.
whatsoever.
It's all about new
It's
construction.
new construction.
And I've been told it's about $1 a foot.
And
So
here's my question. If we do that, your insurance is going to be so much, it's going to make up the difference, because it's going to be so much lower if you have that sprinkler system in there. I mean, let's face it. You have a sprinkler system, it's going to be lower, just like if you have an alarm system. Your insurance, for everything you add into your home, it's going to be much, much lower. And I don't know this now, I'm asking Ricky, would this even be counted in in our ISO rating?
It would be on the code side of that.
That's what I'm saying, because I know codes.
It would figure in on the ISO code rating in the codes section of everything. Yes, it definitely would make a difference there.
So,
We definitely agree from the fire department standpoint on this, though. There's no reason to set square footage limits. You'd be creating a nightmare. It's opt-in or
well,
opt-out.
actually, I was the one that had asked that question.
Right. Yeah, we agree with the codes department. It's opt-into it or it's opt-out.
all or nothing.
But yeah, I was one that asked that. Do we do something like that?
Somebody told me the other day, you can't be just a little bit pregnant.
Yeah.
Either are or you're not.
It's got running water to it, it gets a sprinkler.
Pardon?
It's got running water, it gets a sprinkler.
Yeah, and that sprinkler system is a part of the domestic water service. Now, there's been some debate about, you know, it's a part, you know, you'd want to flush your system every time you run you flush a toilet or something, so that water is not going to sit stagnant in that system. The problem Nolensville had recently during our sub-zero weather was limited to just a couple of builders in Nolensville, what I understood their building department to say, that there was one or two builders over there that they were, I mean, I don't want to say negligent or they just, their subcontractor that insulated did not insulate properly, let's just say that. And they froze and burst. And I don't know them personally, but I've been told of one gentleman that's in Nolensville right now that is still, from early January, still trying to get his home back together because of the amount of destruction that occurred when that thing froze. Now, you have to be a licensed installer to install a sprinkler system. You can pull a permit as an electrician or plumber, or as a homeowner to plumb or do electrical work or do anything in your house that you want to. But you cannot install a sprinkler system unless you're a licensed installer.
Well, when we would do our home inspections, would we not check to see if those type of things were being done properly?
Well, yes, ma'am, there is. I mean, there are certain, you know, we do an insulation inspection. And in most cases, that sprinkler system should already be in place when we do that. You know, where those pipes freeze is in attics. And that attic is exposed to outside elements. And if that pipe, I mean, you can even insulate that pipe under those extreme conditions, it would be, I mean, difficult at best to make sure that every pipe in Nolensville was protected from that kind of cold. I mean, where you've got an overnight low of, say, anything below freezing. Well, let's just go and say it at 0, which we had, you know, quite a few nights last few months ago. When you have a duration of days put together, a string of days put together at that temperature, it's hard to keep plumbing in your home from freezing, under your vanities and kitchen cupboards and so forth. If it's on an outside wall, it's subject to freeze. And that outside wall may even be, you know, insulated, bricked, facing the west. It's still subject to freeze because it has no real access to, under your cupboard, to warm air, unless you leave that vanity cupboard open so that you can get warm air in there. So, I mean, there's, you know, and of course, you know, we'd do everything we could to make sure that the insulation is done properly. I know that I know the inspector there, I know he did everything that he felt necessary to do to make sure that was looked at properly. It's just when you have that kind of weather, those extreme conditions, anything's subject to go wrong.
Well, I mean, my upstairs toilet burst,
The percentage-
you know, so.
The freezing during that same period of time.
Yeah.
The sprinkler coefficient out of that altogether.
Yeah,
There were a whole lot more homes that were damaged due to just freezing in general with pipes in the house.
yeah.
You're not increasing anything by doing that. As we said, when you have a long duration of sub-freezing temperatures like that, pipes are going to freeze and bust. And I'm an expert on that. I'm a
You're
full-time
upstairs,
freezer.
yeah.
So,
But the only thing about it, if you got the sprinkler running the ceilings, if it freezes and busts, it's gonna come down. That's what happened in Nolensville.
I saw-
It was a big mess over there.
Alderman Walden, I saw photographs that were just, I mean, I wouldn't wish that on anybody. I mean, that blown insulation, when that pipe burst, that blown insulation, of course, as that drywall began to absorb all that water, it got heavy and it dropped out and it took everything up there with that was there to be found and just washed it right into the home. And if anybody's dealt with blown insulation, you know how messy that stuff is, especially when it's wet. Soaking wet. But I mean, you know, it's y'all's decision on sprinkler or not sprinkler. You tell me what you want and
I
we
say
will implement
sprinkler.
that.
Builders would take a little more pride in their work.
Well, I mean, and we'll do everything we can too, as far as inspection wise, to make sure that that it's properly insulated. You know, I would, Dennis, myself, and Larry, all of us would need to go to some additional training, I'm sure, to get up to speed on how to protect and preserve a residential sprinkler system. Because I mean, it's just something I've never seen one. Honestly, in my 20 years of doing this, I have never seen a residential sprinkler system. Not the first. Not one have I been a participant of. But it wouldn't take us but just a day or two or a few days to get up to speed on what needs to be done in inspecting. So, you know, I mean, I'm sure that sprinkler contractors all over would be more than gracious to host a gathering of codes inspectors from this city to go out and look at some installations and be a part of those installations and see what all is required. About $1 per square foot for residential is what I'm told is the cost of sprinkling. If you're sprinkling 3,100 square feet, there you go, $3,100. And that cost is added, I mean, I'm sure that cost will be added to the homeowner. I mean, the builder's not gonna absorb it himself, but, you know, how can you take that first step without knowing what the outcome's going to be? I mean, obviously, if it slows us down, then it can obviously be changed. But you know, that would be a caution that I would make, that you know, it could very easily affect our residential permits in this city. We do enough now. We do quite a bit. We don't do obviously what was done a decade ago, 8 years ago. But, I mean, we're still busy with residential, and I would hate to see that hurt in any way. I mean, that's, you know, that brings good folks to this community. But in the same breath, I do like sprinklers. I would have one myself if I could afford it.
Well, I'd rather see quality homes built. And then obviously, if you're gonna do a sprinkler, you're
Rather
gonna
have
take a little more
quality than
time
quantity.
to do a quality job.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you go back to what was built 8, 10 years ago, a lot of these aren't quality homes.
There are a whole lot more people that die from fire in their home too.
Then-
From ground from sprinkler.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you got insurance.
Oh, they no doubt
insurance is gonna
save
cover it.
lives. I mean, any sprinkler system anywhere is going to preserve property and life as well. And you know, I've seen some horrific videos from fires where people were, you know, stationed in Rhode Island. I have video of that fire. And to watch that is.
Ricky and I talked about that today. And I'm gonna say this, there was a comment in the paper about, well, I think it was actually on Facebook, about somebody making a church put sprinklers in. Well, have you ever heard of anybody dying in a church? Classic example, right down here on Bell Road, the big church, you turn right onto Bell Road, the congregation had just left. When 33s pulled up, that thing was fully involved. I'm talking about coming through the roof, coming out the windows. Had those children been in those, I know it's a what if, shoulda, coulda, woulda, but had it been, evidently it had to have been smoldering. Any of your firefighters, a fire like that had to be smoldering somewhere for it to bloom like that. Had those kids been in there, and it didn't have a sprinkler system. And it was a very large church. So, and I mean, I know that's not residential, but that is a classic example of what happened. And that fire hall is what, the next road over from where this church was. And it went to the ground.
Well, you know, doing what I do, when I walk into a building that I've never been in before, that's one of the first things I start looking for sprinkler heads. I want to know, am I in a building that's protected? Because I know that gives me an extra minute or two or extra few seconds. And sometimes that's all it takes, is just a matter of a second or two to get you where you need to be in a safe, protected area. And I do. I mean, I go into a building and I start looking in some of these ceilings, and I look to see if I'm in a sprinkler building or not. And when I have that warm, fuzzy feeling when I know that I am. I mean, I've been in a few places that weren't, and
Yep. Well, y'all think about this. If you have questions, please contact Randolph or Mr. Blair, their fire department. You know, if you any of the questions, contact these people, ask them questions, get all the information for you to make a comfortable decision, whichever way, for Tuesday night. And if you have questions, please call some of these guys and ask them. Or if you have questions now.
what I've put on your desk was a for you to look at your own leisure at the time that you can find, is fee schedules for other jurisdictions from Spring Hill to Columbia, Murfreesboro, Smyrna. I think I've got Mount Juliet, and there's a few others that are in Shelbyville. I'm really anxious for us to reconsider and I know some of these are based on valuation, just as we are, but I'd be willing for us to look at a fee schedule based on square footages versus just the valuation for some of the builders that come in and, you know, they're going to build this 3,100 square foot home for $220,000. Well, you know, I'd like them to build me one at that price. Brick, 3-car garage. You know, there's too much room for error in that valuation. When they come in with a building permit and I look at it, you know, and where it affects us most is in remodel. But you've got a homeowner that they've been over to Lowe's and they've said, well, it's $16,000, you know, and that doesn't include everything. Carpet, mat, pad, you know, the whole 9 yards. Trim work, moldings and so forth. They're going over there buying a lumber package to do a 2-room addition, and that lumber package is $8,000, and that's what they're coming in saying they're gonna build a two-room addition for $8,500. Not always, you know, especially if you're digging footings and putting in new foundations, whether it be concrete slab turned down or footing with block walls and built off stem walls off that. I would really like for y'all to look at that and think about it somewhat in the coming months, because I would really, we really need to, we're losing money, I would think, to these little remodel jobs, and on those jobs, we're over there in and out, and in and out, and in and out, and in and out, in and out, inspecting, re-inspecting, and I hate to throw a bunch of re-inspection fees on people who are trying to do their best and just get by in this world. I think we're here to help folks, not hurt them. So look at that, if you will, as you can, and if you have any questions about any of that, I'll be happy to answer your questions you may have.
Okay.
Are we good now? Anyone have any questions?
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right. Number 8, first reading, ordinance 2014-6, an ordinance to amend the 2013-2014 fiscal year general fund budget.
As you know, Mayor, we're required by the state to amend our budget if we've made any changes to expenses or line items during the year. And at this time, I would like to go ahead and amend the general fund budget to accommodate for some of the changes that we have made. And I'm not going to say that I might come back, later and make some more. But for right now, I want to go ahead and get started on the ones that I know for sure that we need to go ahead and take care of. Starting off with the increased expenditures for various line items. Under the police unemployment insurance, we do not budget for that, so we do have an expense there that we need to include in $4,200. Also in the police department, we installed or purchased an APHIS system. Now, we did take funds, we did decrease expenses for a transportation line item. The chief just swapped that around. I think there was motorcycles, something that he was going to purchase this year, and we decided to use that funds for the APHIS system. So that's just basically a decrease in line item 944 and an increase in line item 948. We had an increase in transportation equipment in the police department of $57,000. That is actually equipment for the vehicles we purchased in the last budget year that was back ordered and not paid for until this fiscal year. That is not an additional expense. It's actually left over from last year. Professional services in the police department, we have basically this $45,000 is for the travel from New World. This is where we are charging that expense off to. Computer equipment for the police department, that's our CAD system at $1.1 million. Additional computer system, the console system, $587,500. Console replacement, okay. Radios, okay. And those two items are actually being offset on down in this amendment by the proceeds from the lease with SunTrust. City Hall insurance, we have had an increase of about $40,000. This is just general increase for workers' comp. I believe this will cover most of the fire department increase. I may have to come back with a little bit of an adjustment for that. City administration, small items equipment, we need to increase that line item by $2,300, and I think that's going to cover the furniture that was purchased. City administrator equipment rental, that is for a copier that we need to, we did not budget for that this year. And in the legislative, we need to increase that budget by $21,000. This is generally happens when we have a change of coverage, when an employee changes from single to family during the year. And actually, I think this one was one that we missed during the whole budget process that should have been changed at the beginning of the year. So we decreased expenses in several areas. We will have a decrease in the debt service principal and interest from line items 649 and 650. That is where we deferred the first payment of the CAD system to July 1st. So we will not see that expense in this fiscal year, but we will see it in the 14-15 fiscal year. Police Department, like I mentioned earlier, that we decreased the transportation equipment line and moved it up to the computer equipment line for the APHIS system. City Recorder, this was a position that we have, but the position is being paid for out of another department. That will be changed in the next fiscal year. So with that would be we'll have a reduction in expenses for the wages, the health insurance, the retirement, and the FICA. And we increased revenues by $128,000 for the Rutherford County 911 grant, and we increased our revenues for the lease proceeds of $1.7 million. And with all that being said, with us decreasing expenses and adding revenues and increasing expenses, the net of this effect of the whole general fund is we'll be putting back $255,000 into the general fund. So that's a good thing.
Yes.
Anybody have any questions on that?
You want to repeat all that? Any questions? All right. First reading, ordinance 2014-07, an ordinance to amend the 2013-2014 fiscal year state street aid budget.
Mayor, this is a need to increase the line item for the repair and maintenance on the roads. We used the bond proceeds money to do a lot of paving this year. This was money that we had collected from bond calls in the fiscal year 12-13, and we collected some more in the 13-14 year. And we utilized those funds to do some paving, I believe, in the Lake Forest area, and that was necessary from the bond proceeds. This is just to get that in line with what we've done.
Excellent. Any questions? Okay. Next, Resolution 2014-13, a resolution to write off Water Department bad debts.
Mayor, I've sent an email out to the board a few weeks ago to look over the list. All of these accounts have been turned over to the collection service, and they are working those accounts, but we need to get these off of our records, and we do this about once a year, every year. And Allison has went through this list, and any accounts that she could move over, she moved over. It's been cleaned up pretty thoroughly, and these are accounts we feel that we can't collect on. They have been turned over to Fox, and they will continue to collect on them.
Any questions? Okay, discussion. Regulations for unmanned aerial vehicles. Drones.
Call it what it is.
Call it what it is.
More or less, more or less. There's been a lot of discussion back and forth with Bruce and Evan, and I've had a little bit, but Chief Lowry has done the majority of it because he had done the majority of the background work on it. So if you've got questions about the FAA side of it, I think, and Evan can speak for himself, but he said it pretty well in an email earlier, if you want to tell them what the bottom line appears to be.
Yeah, we've looked at this from just about every angle that we can explore it, and there just doesn't seem to be any way for us as a municipality to regulate the use of drones within the city limits. I think, there are a couple of options as a city that we can explore if you want to do it. And I'll just give you an example. One would be if we looked at it from a standpoint of, we would require somebody who within the city limits, if we can find them and locate them, who's operating a drone, to maybe get a permit or to go through some process, then that's fine. But if somebody's standing over the county line in Davidson County and flying the drone over into Laverne, we wouldn't have any control over that. The FAA, just for lack of a better explanation, has pretty much complete control over anything that flies over through the air. And so I think until they grant some autonomy to the cities and local government to regulate this stuff, which I don't know whether they will, then any complaints that citizens have about these types of things need to be made to the FAA. I think we as a city can probably help people by, Bruce and I were chatting even this afternoon before the meeting started about, the police. If you see somebody who's doing something, the FAA has rules about how you operate this stuff, then surely, some sort of report can be made and then a complaint can be filed with the FAA. But, unless there's something I'm missing, and Chief, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I just don't see a way we can, if at all.
We have no reporting capability unless they back us up. The only thing you can do is enact an ordinance of some sort, some type of, to echo what you said. The FAA mandates you can't fly over Class B airspace. You can't fly over densely populated areas. You can't fly over within 3 miles of an airport. However, we have no way of enforcing that.
That would be up to the FAA to, if you saw somebody breaking that rule, it would be an FAA rule and they would have to enforce it. We couldn't enforce it.
And the sad part of it is, this is, what I'm fixing to say is not a political comment, but it's a comment about politics. And it's high time the state legislature stood up, it did what they should, and lay things aside and look what's best for all of us as a whole, and quit bickering back and forth because of party issues between every daggum one of them. I'm not singling anybody out. But it's high time they look at things other than big bad government to get votes and start looking at what's going to work for all of us, because they passed the law last year that said that law enforcement has to utilize the Fourth Amendment as long as all the other parts of the U.S. Constitution. When we do our job, we can't do illegal search and seizure. And all they did was write into a state law what we would be compelled to do anyway, and that is, if we're going to search using a drone, quote unquote, then we're going to have a search warrant to do it anyway, unless there are exigent circumstances. You agree, Counselor?
Yes, sir.
But they wrote in there that we had to do this, we had to do that. They didn't look at anything else concerning a drone. Alderman Waldron could go buy him a drone and he could fly it all over Laverne, look in windows. And I'm not picking on Dennis, don't get me wrong. He's the first one I saw when I looked up. I'm serious. The issue is, anybody who wants to use it for a criminal act is not covered that we know of. And we'd be hard-pressed to try to stretch some of the other statutes within Tennessee Code Annotated to try to cover the use of it. So it's going to take all of us pushing our state legislators to step up to the plate, put things aside, and do things that will be best for all of us as a whole, to keep all of us safe, and put the R's and the D's and the I's and anything else out there behind them and do something. Do what we elect them to go there to do anyway.
Well, along those lines, Mayor.
I agree.
Along those same lines, Mayor, one thing you may want to do as a board is you may want to draft a resolution to send to your congressman, to the state House and state Senate, just telling them that the city of Laverne's in favor of granting municipalities authority to regulate these things, or at least provide us some sort of relief so we can protect our citizens from people who, like the example that started this, from someone who's just wanting to sell roofs and flying drones over people's houses.
Well, the thing is, they jumped through hoops, and very quickly after this first came up and we started talking about it and it was publicized, they jumped through hoops and introduced a bill in the Senate and in the House. You know what they've done on it?
Nothing.
Not one thing.
Nothing.
They had no intention of doing anything.
What's the fine for discharging a weapon in the city limits?
Do what?
What's the fine for discharging a weapon in the
No
city?
more than $50.
Because that's what people are going to do.
That's what they're going to do.
No more
that's
than
what they're gonna do.
$50.
They're going to
Yep.
shoot them down.
Yep.
You'd just be shooting over a baited field.
Yep.
There you go.
But we
I ain't
could
telling nobody to
consider
shoot
doing
it, but you know
that.
that's what they're
I
going to
mean,
do.
very much, we absolutely could do that. So that's a good idea.
Is there anything that could be done, Evan, from your perspective, from the standpoint Bruce brought it up, if they're using it in the furtherance of a commercial enterprise, requiring them to have a permit and go through a permitting process, like we do door-to-door salespersons?
Well, it would, that's where it gets tricky in terms of, are you regulating the aircraft, and then are you evading the jurisdiction of the FAA by virtue of having that? Are you restricting somebody's right to fly that drone? I mean, I don't know, we could try to do something like that. I don't know whether we can enforce it or not, but.
Is there a chance that we could make them comply to the COA that's required by the FAA? They have to have a commercial COA. An individual can't fly on legal for commercial purposes without applying. Can we make them provide one of those before they can get a permit to use one?
I would want the FAA to tell us that they would let us enforce that provision.
There's less than 550 been issued period by the FAA, so,
Yeah.
And that's nationwide, so,
Yeah.
and they're mostly for experimental purposes or for, much like some of these other companies that are trying to put these.
I would want something in writing from the FAA saying that they'd be okay with us enforcing that.
Could we not require them to show us that they have that before they can do that here?
I mean, you know, we could put that requirement, but we couldn't necessarily stop them from doing it. And I mean, what would ultimately happen is you'd say, okay, we're gonna require you to show us this. If you don't show it to us, you're still not gonna have authority to stop them. If you did stop them, then you could run into what you're talking about, Fourth Amendment violation, that you're exceeding your authority and get sued for a civil rights violation at that point. So, I mean, you should just declare it open season on drones and you can get a permit and have eight drones a year.
Yeah, tag them and turn them in. Yeah.
And I know of a couple that will. That's three.
Cheaper than a speeding ticket.
But I do like, if we can, maybe do some kind of draft to send to our congressman.
Sure.
That's something we can certainly look at.
Well, not only Congress, but
State, all of them. Not that it'll do anything, but you know what?
We still be on the record saying what.
Absolutely. When they say we didn't know, we say, yeah, you did. All right. Next, discussion, budget workshops. We have the budget workshops planned for April 3rd, 10th, and the 17th. And those are Thursdays. Am I right? Yes, yeah. Thursdays. And they will begin at 1 p.m. Do we have anybody that's not comfortable with any of these dates? Come prepared to work. I think we're going to be okay. Just got to tighten the belts a little bit, but we're going to be good. It's going to be real good. So, got some big decisions to make, and Phyllis will have her whip out and her red pen. So. But if something comes up, please let us know ahead of time, and hopefully we can make adjustments accordingly. But I would love to have a full board here if possible.
I shouldn't have no problem.
Excellent. So, Bruce, did you have anything you wanted to add, or Phyllis?
I just want to add that on the 3rd, we'll start with the general fund and go through the general fund departments, and the 10th, we'll do all other funds and departments. And then the 17th, we'll either use to recap or regroup, or, use it as needed.
Okay.
Including capital projects, and we're going to look at, when will we look at nonprofits? Will that be?
During the general fund.
Good deal. Next is discussion, city administrator, performance evaluation. If you will look in your packets, Cheryl has been working on this. This is something that we've been needing to do. It is in Bruce's contract. It's very simple. Evaluation. Please review over it. If you have anything that you'd like to add, that you don't like, I guess you can get Bruce on this. I think it's a good one. It's very simple, but to the point. And what we'll do is, we'll take this, and I think we have a date of, if this is approved, are we gonna approve this for this evaluation, or how do we do this?
I don't think it has to be approved necessarily, it's just, if there's any comments about the form itself,
Okay.
just get back with me and or Cheryl, and, we'll ask all of you to fill out the final form and have that submitted back to Cheryl by March the 24th, and then we can discuss the results at the next workshop, which is on May the 1st.
Do we do this to the other employees?
I'm sorry?
We're getting ready to do this, but we're starting.
Okay.
The main reason we're doing this one, because it's required in the contract.
In his contract.
We are working on performance reviews for all
All
employees,
employees,
and we hope
yes.
to start that up within the next few months.
Okay.
Wait, you said April the 24th.
March,
April,
yeah,
you
it
said
should,
March.
it should be
It's
April 21st, I'm sorry, that's
Yeah.
a typo.
But please look that over. I think it's, and then like I said, you will just turn it in yourself to Ms. Vaughn or Cheryl when it's completed. Okay. Next, discussion 2005 bond issue refunding.
Mayor and Board, I was approached by SunTrust, I think it was middle of last week. They were reviewing some of our bonds, and they had noticed that on our 2005 bond, they were looking at the interest rate, and they felt like that we could get a little better interest rate on that. They're wanting to know if we would be interested in refunding that bond, which is the same to me as refinancing. The overall savings for the general fund portion of that bond was $81,000 over the life of the bond, and this bond does not let me see what the date is. This bond goes through 2025. For the water sewer fund portion of this bond, there is actually a savings of almost $325,000. As I explained to them, we are in the middle of our budget process and have been discussing a possible new bond issue. And we talked about, whether including this in the new bond issue to get a better rate, or doing this as a separate. They suggested doing it as separate. And they approached us. We've never done this type of refunding. This is called a negotiated sale. This is where we work directly with SunTrust. There is no bidding process to this. We don't get quotes from other financial institutions on interest rate. This is approved by the state. It's called a negotiated sale. We would just work directly with SunTrust on this, and they would get an underwriter to work out all the terms. I just wanted to let you know that they had approached us, and just kind of get some feedback from you guys to see if you thought this was something we wanted to do. I personally know that we don't have time to do this, until budgets are over. Just wanted to get your input, whether you wanted to pursue this maybe in the next month or so. It's a good savings for the water and sewer
Yeah, I
fund.
was going to say, and that's in our area that's quite a bit of savings.
The one thing I'm not real comfortable with, and that's, if there's a possibility that there's a better rate out there if we put it out for bid.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, they have offered us a very, very good rate on this, and I have not had a chance to run this by Stephen's group, and he certainly recommended that we run this through Bassberry Sims and, our city attorney if necessary. But I just want to get your feedback to see if you thought this was something that the city would want to do.
I'm all about saving money.
We can do this in conjunction with a new bond issue, or we can do this, separately.
On this one, is there some way we could, give Phyllis permission to just look into it and then come back with us? Do we need a vote for that?
I don't think
So we don't have to have a vote for that. I mean, you said it's gonna be a couple of months anyway.
Yeah. What I'd
I
like to do
mean-
is have the opportunity to talk to Stevens Group and to Bass Berry Sims to see, you know, what their view is on doing a negotiated
Absolutely.
versus the way we normally do it, which is through bond counsel, and then, you know, they distribute it out to a bunch of underwriters, and then it gets bidded out to different investors. You know, the good thing about a negotiated sale is it's a lot quicker.
Yeah.
You're not bidding out, you're not having to go through all those hoops. But again, like I said, you know, whether this is the best rate, I don't know.
Did they say what kind of fees involved in it?
Well, there's a $25,000 fee to do the refunding on the general fund part, and there's a $50,000 fee to do the refunding on the water sewer part.
If the general fund was only 81,000 savings to begin with.
Right. Now, the 80-something thousand dollar savings, he said, was after the $50,000 expense.
Okay,
So,
okay, all right.
That's a
no,
net
that's over the
savings.
life of the bond. Mhm. That savings is over the life of the bond, which it doesn't, this bond doesn't end until 2025.
This is not something we have to decide in the
No.
next
No,
meeting.
my thoughts are, you know, we need to get with Stevens and
Yeah.
get their opinion, since they are our financial advisor, and we can look at it both as a negotiated sale, but we also need to start looking into what we're going to do for the fire apparatus. We're getting ready to put those out for bid, so hopefully in a month or so, we're going to have some numbers there that we can use to see what we're going to have to bond out for that. So I think we can look at both issues at the same time and you know, make a better decision on what we need to do.
Any questions? All righty, thank you, Ms. Phillips. Next, discussion, police department project updates and staffing overview.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Alderman, we need to go ahead and just totally dismantle ladder 3 instead of actually, and sell it for scrap rather than actually buying. Oh, excuse me, that was yours. That did good? That did good? Yeah. There are a lot of things going on, a lot of projects are happening for us right now, and I think you all realize that. Probably Phyllis and Felicia are the two that get hit the hardest with it, because they see everything coming and going and going and going. It's wide open. We had issues, as I had told you previously, with our Tibers. Reports going to TBI from Arconics. Arconics is the outgoing, old, antiquated CAD RMS software, a records management system. Our folks did a tremendous job. They came in, TBI came in, brought 2 people, spent the better part of a whole long day training our folks to use software they have, which is temporary. We can't get data back out of it until at the end of the year, but we were able to key so that at least the information we're sending TBI is accurate and correct. In slightly more than 1 week, is that right, Keith? About a week and a half, they keyed 638 reports. Now, they'd already keyed them into Arconics, but because Arconics played with the stuff, because they never upgraded, never did anything to fix and repair what we had to provide it in the correct language, computer language, to TBI, we had to go back and rekey, do dual keying. Now, that leaves us with one problem. A lot of the numbers that TBI has in that database now, in the Tibers database, actually has some duplicate records, and the problem we have is not knowing which of those are duplicates and which aren't. So our numbers are pretty well messed up for 2013. But from January 1 forward, we're keying in getting all of those done in 10 COP, as it's called, so that when that data conversion occurs, then it will go over and be there for this year and hopefully correct once we flip the switch on our new CAD RMS, which is the next one. The New World Aegis software is already loaded. We've got a lot of things that have been done. The PD and fire both have sat down and worked some long, hard hours. I think our two new assistant chiefs did a very good job. They kept the chief awake the whole entire time and held him up, and his head didn't hit the table. Is that right, Mike? And he's ignoring
He's
it.
not even paying attention.
But this is a lot of man hours that we're expending on this end of it. A lot of things are happening. A lot of things are moving. We're hoping for about mid-June that the switch will be flipped on the initial turn-on part of it so that we can begin actually really using and getting going with it. The Motorola radios and consoles, Phyllis addressed that a minute ago. You all understand where that's coming from. There are parts and pieces and boxes piled all over the police department. They even came here and pretty well blocked the door going into finance, which Phyllis probably wasn't too upset about, except she couldn't get out. It kept people from coming in very much, though. And we've had to get the inmates to help move stuff because they're delivering like crazy. They're shooting for us to get done by the April date that Metro's given us, that they're going to flip the P25 switch. So, good Lord willing, the creeks don't rise and everything works out like it's supposed to. Hopefully, we'll make pretty close to that date, if not at all. Our dispatch Center 911 ergonomic equipment, you all voted, or you didn't vote on it, you heard about it, and you'll vote on it Tuesday to approve the bid to move forward on that so that we can get that equipment, get it in. We've got the new consoles that are coming in as well. And then the CAD RMS stuff will be coming in after that, so it's important that we get that furniture in as quickly as possible, because what we have is old, in disrepair, and is not today's world's ergonomic that we should have for the 24/7, 365 furniture that needs to be in there for those personnel. For the first time in the history of the city, we now have a court-ordered traffic school that is certified. Our instructors are certified. After you vote Tuesday night, hopefully we can move forward with it and begin our Saturday classes. They can't be 1 hour. They can't be a half hour. They can't be an hour and a half, et cetera, et cetera. They have to be 4 hours, and they have to meet a certain required standard. And the program is certified now. We have the certificate and also the instructors, the 3 that we have. So we will have that for the first time. And I'm going to announce for the first time, I haven't even snuck and told Bruce this yet, so forgive me, boss. But, and I think he ought to have a 5+ on his evaluation too, which is the best you could get. We have a young man in the audience here tonight, and I wanted to announce it tonight instead of next week because it would kind of get lost, I'm afraid. For the first time ever, the Laverne Police Department will have someone who has been selected and will be attending the FBI National Academy, the 10-week program in Quantico, starting in July, and that's Sergeant John J.J. Eubank.
All right.
We had 4 young men who had submitted or had started the process with the FBI's thing that had said they were interested. I got an email and then a call one Thursday night a few weeks ago that said, hey, you've got 4 that started it, only 2 completed it. We've got 1 that's been selected that had to back out. Do you want to send one of yours? And I said, absolutely, you know I do. because that's what we'd been working on since I got here, trying to get somebody to that point. And one thing led to another, and finally, Bill Kay, who is the training coordinator for Middle and West Tennessee FBI regional office, said, "Okay, are you going to pick?" And I said, "No, you are. You've got the information. I don't want to have to do that." And so it wound up being an alphabetical. E came before M, and JJ was the one that was selected this time. We're proud of him. He made the grade all the way through to the point that they said, "Yep, you're going to get to come." And so in July, he'll go and be gone for 10 weeks, but the only thing it costs us is his time. All the travel, the meals, everything else, the feds will reimburse or provide while he's gone. We just have to provide his transportation. I think they provide transportation twice while you're there. Is that right?
That's correct, sir. They do the ride there and the ride back at the beginning and at the end of the program.
Okay.
We'll be watching for you on Criminal Minds.
No, he ain't going nowhere. He's got an obligation to be here with them, to be here for 3 years. It's kind of like the obligation I had with the National Executive Institute. They do. You have to agree to stay in law enforcement for 3 years. The only problem was I retired, but they have gotten more than 3 years out of me since I did that in 2009, so after I came here. There are a lot of things that are going on. We've got, we are submitted our 2015 Governor's Highway Safety Office grant, and Phyllis, that's going to be just a little over $57,000. It looks like, if it's approved, which will provide us funds as we've requested, if it's approved as requested, for a couple of LiDAR units, which are the laser speed devices, handheld. But it's laser rather than radio beams, rather than radar. And also provide funding for our alcohol saturation patrols and our sobriety checkpoints too. We have a lot of community events going on. April is Autism Awareness Month, so I ask all of you to remember that. You'll see, those of you who have Facebook saw mine change about a week ago. Start reminding everybody of that. Our DARE program graduations are beginning. Tomorrow morning is the first one, and that's at 8 o'clock at Laverne Lake Elementary. And then we'll have our other schools, because we have every single school we have has DARE in it, of those elementary/middle schools. So we're pretty excited about that this year. Special Olympics is coming up, thanks to our family over at Fire and in FOP and a particular family that I won't mention, that's involved with LPD, and a whole lot of other folks in this city. There was almost $2,800 contributed for Rock Springs Middle School's Special Olympics kids for uniforms and other equipment they need, tennis shoes, etc. And a lot of those kids are Laverne kids. But April the 10th will be a 1.5 mile run by who is it? Rutherford County, SO, Murfreesboro PD, Smyrna doing it, and LPD's doing it too. Team LPD, that's a new group that's been started that Detective Stephen Hale is putting together, which will be visible with a Team LPD shirt on, and will run in various events, beginning with this one on the 10th of April, so that people will see us and see that we're there and we are involved. We do care in our community, for the people in our community. The 15th of May is National Law Enforcement Officer Memorial Day, and that week, that entire week, Sunday through Saturday, through the 17th, is National Law Enforcement Officer Memorial Week. There will be different events in the area for that. And then Carry the Load. If nothing happens, sometime probably between 4 and 6 p.m. on Friday the 16th of May, Carry the Load will be coming back through. They will be doing a semi-hard stop. There will be some of them who will be here briefly and stop, and then we'll go on into Davidson County, but some of them are going to stay here that night too, like they did last year. So we'll have, hopefully we can get a lot of things up and running and moving for that event and get it going, and especially people in the community. We're getting ready for other events in the spring at the ballpark, and we start with the egg hunt the 12th. And prior to that, we'll be doing our SOR, or Sex Offender Registry accountability visits, knocking on doors, reminding them of the restrictions and so on and so forth. And then we'll be making sure everybody knows who's on the list and keeping an eye out to make sure our kids are safe all throughout the city, and other citizens too. Now, I sent each of you an email earlier that has a document in it that I had found, and I had shared it with others before that. I'd shared it with Bruce a few weeks ago, and I just want to allude to it. And I want to preface this by saying, I live here. I pay taxes here. I understand the circumstances and the situations. But there's one thing I don't want us to forget as we move forward and go on through the next few years. There was a study conducted by MTAS. I think about 2001 is when it occurred, somewhere in that area. I know that former Mayor Mike Webb and former City Administrator Mark Mulchay had requested that an administrative review be conducted of the Laverne Police Department. And it occurred, I said, between 2000 and 2002. It was somewhere in that period, but it had to be after 2000 because they referred to the 2000 census as being 18,687 in 2000. But one of the things they did, it went through, it's a pretty sizable document. I think it's about 19 pages total. But there were some things that I looked at there. One of the things that they said up front in the introduction, Rex Barton, whom I know, Chief Lowry knows, and maybe some others of you, has worked with the MTAS for a number of years. He came from the Athens Police Department. And to give you an idea about Athens, I have some personal experience there because Sky's vehicle's been broken into. They've tried to break into her house. She did an internship there last summer, and they wouldn't hardly give her the time of day when those things occurred. But I'll hush about that part, but I will tell you this. Laverne is 11th on the list of safest cities in the state of Tennessee over certain populations. Athens is the lowest in that group, and that's 50. They're 50 as far as serious crimes, et cetera, et cetera. But Rex worked there. I don't always agree with him in his thoughts and concepts, and I don't agree with everything he said in this document, but I do agree with an awful lot of it in some form or fashion. Much of the recommendations have already been done with the organization of the department in training, et cetera, et cetera. There's one thing that was recommended in there. The International Association of Chiefs of Police back a few years ago recommended that there be 3 sworn officers for every 1,000 population. That's not a good accurate number. It's not a good rule of thumb. As a matter of fact, you can't have a rule of thumb as such and say you got to have this or you're not doing what you're supposed to, because each city is different. One of the things that they did point out, however, in the introduction of it is that if you will permit me, overall the Laverne Police Department is a sound, effective organization. But he also said the primary scope of the study was to organizational structure, manpower allocation, present and future staffing levels, and technology uses for the police department. Technology's coming. We've stepped forward. We're doing that. We're providing that means. We have done some increases and some changing. But in 2011, former Chief Boyd presented a plan, and we kind of got away from that. You did allow us to be competitive in recruiting people, though, because you stepped up and stepped forward and increased the pay scale so that we could attract good quality candidates and retain them. So we have very few leaving for that reason now. The staffing level of the LPD when this thing was done was 2.19 officers per 1,000, based on the 2000 population of 18,687. And there were, at that time, sworn staffing level of 41 officers. Just to tell you where we are, so that you kind of have an idea, today the current staffing level of sworn officers per 1,000 population is 1.57. And that's based upon 53 sworn positions. And the U.S. Census Bureau's official estimated population for 2012 being 33,777. If we had 2.19 sworn officers per 1,000, as was there over a decade ago, we would need 74 sworn officers, or 21 more than we have currently budgeted. So that gives you an idea of where we are. I'm not saying we need to do this, and I'm not doing this for budget request. I'm just saying we need to look at a lot of things over the next few years as we can, as we go forward. But to give you an idea, too, of where we are and what the men and women of our agency is doing with what we have. They're doing a tremendous job simply because they work very hard, they're very aggressive when it comes to doing their jobs from the perspective of being professionals and doing things the right way, and I'm proud of them. I'm doggone proud of them because for the last few years, as you all know, last year we had a crime rate, or 12, we had a crime rate that was the lowest in over a decade.
Yep.
So just keep that in mind down the road when we do our planning for the future, that there are some needs there that we will need to address. But I'm not doing it to put anybody in a position of any type. And I hope you understand that. And I hope you understand where I'm coming from when I explain that. Anybody have any questions?
We're proud of you and your team.
No, good group of men and women over there who work very hard. All the credit goes to them, I assure you. And I think one of the things that really says it is that the FBI, for the first time ever, has selected someone from Laverne to attend FBI NA.
But we do need to put a tracker on him.
We do. We do.
That's right, we want a drone. Thank you, Chief, very much. Vice Mayor did send his apologies. Maggie's temp went up to 103, so they're going to go get her sent about. But so he sent his apologies for having to leave, and especially Chief during your presentation. He's sorry. Next, repairs to ladder 3. Nope.
That was an excellent report too, by the way, Chief. I'm just picking on you, honestly. I'm just picking on you. You could have took the ladder 3 repair thing too.
I know it.
This is basically just an FYI so that everybody knows. Back in January, the board did approve with Cumberland International a preventive maintenance program, which we've never had for the fire service here before, trying to keep the older apparatus that we have in the condition that we need until we can purchase some new equipment and get out of these type repairs that I'm going to speak about here now. For the first time as well, we've also are having our equipment DOT inspected. Cumberland is also doing that. In doing so, we are finding issues that were there, some that were pretty critical. This truck did have some brake issues to the tune of about $4,700. That seems like a whole lot. This is a custom piece of apparatus, though. A brake job on one of these usually lasts about 5 years. It's not like changing the brakes on your car. It's a pretty big ordeal. However, this DOT inspection did find this problem. This also did include pump inspections and things like that. However, it did have a pretty good oil leak when it left here. We had some problems with the alternator on it, caused some spikes, having some lighting repaired and stuff on it. This is one of the pieces of equipment that we're looking at keeping. It is one of the better pieces of equipment that we do have. So this is, we will more than likely, depending on what we find with the motor issue here, this will be a piece of equipment that we keep. That's the reason that we are putting this money into this one. Just wanted to bring it before council, though, because there's a good chance that it will exceed $10,000 by the time we get this piece of equipment back. It's been gone about 2.5 weeks now. The brake portion has been done. It's been washed down to start looking for the oil leaks. Part of the lights have been replaced on it. The rest of them are ordered that need to be done. As I said, it did pass the pump inspection, and all of that's been done, as well as the DOT check off on it. But this is an FYI, just to let the council know, as we had spoke about back in the retreat. Older equipment, lots of preventive maintenance, a lot of breakdowns, a lot of repairs. It costs a lot of money to keep these things up. So this is an FYI, just to let you know. It's nothing that has to be voted on or anything like that. We just wanted to keep you aware that this truck is in the shop. It'll probably be in the shop another week or so. It will be something I will keep in close contact with Bruce about if this ends up being a true internal motor issue that's going to be a large sum of money. We will revisit this again and look at what we might want to do with this piece of equipment. Any questions? Thank you.
All right, we're down to mayor and alderman comments. Alderman Green.
Nothing.
Nothing. Alderman Walker.
No, we really have nothing, but Chief, you definitely don't want to be flying those drones, because I had trouble flying kites in the trees and the power lines. That's it.
I can't top that.
Well, I just want to thank everybody for being here tonight. And we actually have not been together since the big announcement of Walmart coming. They will be here. The final plat was voted on, or the preliminary, let me get this straight, preliminary plat was voted on Tuesday night. We're anticipating the site plan to be here next month, but it is official. It is called the Walmart subdivision. So I believe, Mr. Walker, you do owe me a dozen peach roses. Because you said we couldn't get it, so we got it. I need my roses. So, but that is very exciting, and we look for bigger and better things to come. And with that being said, I'll call this meeting